Yo, what up, everybody? Yo, I'm so happy. I'm so glad to be here. Happy freaking Monday. It's snowing here in Virginia, which is weird because I didn't put it past them. I didn't have any hopes for it, you know what I'm saying? But we have some snow here. It's snowing. It's phenomenal. It's a great day. Relaxing. Happy MLK Day to everybody. Remember, it's easier to be positive. It's easier to be nice. It's easier to be genuine to people than it is to be more negative. You spend a lot more energy being negative. So I appreciate everyone being here. Listen, this is DomCast episode 8 with Thebes Gaming, all right? He's one of my good friends. I've known him for 2.5, 3 years or so. You know, we've come through the ranks. We've come through the streaming world, meeting new different people, meeting our communities are essentially collided, right? We have a lot of the same community members, and it's such a pleasure to know him, to have him as a good friend that I can rely on and talk to. Today, it's going to be triggering. There's a little disclaimer, you know, it could be hard to listen to. It could be hard to understand where Thebes is coming from, or where anybody that comes on this podcast is coming from. And it's understandable that if you just want to lurk and you just want to listen, that's perfectly fine. If you don't want to lurk or listen, you just want to stop in and say, hey, what's up? And then bounce, that's okay too. Like, we're not going to force anybody to come in here and do and talk and say what they want or say what they don't want to talk about. But at the same time, listen, Thebes is courageous enough, brave enough, strong enough to come on here and talk about what he's recently gone through, and kind of give us a little history on who he is, where he comes from, and his whole upbringing. And you know, I'm honored to have him here. It's hard for people to talk about this stuff. Listen, this is the reason why we're doing this. Kick, your number one mental health podcast is right here. This is what we're doing. The reason why I'm doing this is because I need people to see that, yes, it's hard to talk about mental health. It's hard to talk about suicidal ideations. It's hard to talk about suicide attempts and also those who have actually just committed suicide. It's hard to talk about it. It's hard to talk about some of these deep conversations, and that's why I'm bringing this here to Kick only. And then we're uploading the VODs to YouTube. So we're doing this for a reason. I want people to see that it's okay to be uncomfortable with talking about this. It's okay to be uncomfortable with this topic. It's okay to be uncomfortable being human and having these mental thoughts. It's okay it's okay not to be okay. And I'm doing something about it. And this is what we're doing it for. Just know that no matter who you are, whether you're out there or not, you're not alone. We all have similar situations that are going on. We all have relatable, you know, thoughts. We have relatable, you know, things that come up that put us down in the rut. But we're not alone. And then by hearing these stories helps you understand that you're not alone, and it saves someone's life one day, or even today, or even tomorrow. That's what we're looking for. So I appreciate everyone tuning in. Well, without further ado, we have my boy Thebes Gaming here, man. Yo, welcome in. I appreciate you taking time, and I'm proud of you, man.
Hey, I appreciate you letting me come on and kind of give my story and all that, and show that I'm just one of the few people, if not many people here today watching the stream, that have gone through something like this, and I'm just trying to bring awareness to it, tell my story. A little bit about myself. As you know me, I'm Thebes Gaming, obviously. Streamed on Facebook, jumped over to Kick when Kick started to take off. I've been streaming on Kick ever since. I got one son that's 7.5 years old. That's my whole world. I'm a big family man. Been working for a medical warehouse supplying University of Michigan hospitals, by the way. Go Blue Baby, Natty Champs. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I've just been supplying hospitals, and just recently I went through a pretty traumatic loss. I lost my mother last year in January. To kind of go off on that, the backstory with her, I'm a big mama's boy, obviously. Grew up always going to her. She was my biggest supporter, my number one fan in anything that I wanted to do. When I got into content creation, she was my biggest fan. She was in every stream, showing love, talking with people, being there for me. And when it was right around, I want to say Christmas time, she took a pretty nasty fall. She's up there in age. She was around like 63. I'm 31. I have an older brother that's 43. I'm a young baby. I'm the baby of the family. That's why I'm a mama's boy. She took a pretty nasty fall, and just after that, it just didn't seem right. Like, she just seemed like she was out of it. And then she started drifting, and we ended up taking her to the hospital, and they wanted to do some more CT scans on her. Ended up admitting her to the hospital, and that's when we found out that she had an aneurysm that she developed from the fall, and that's what triggered her to go into a coma, and
Man.
eventually is what ended up taking her life.
Oh, I'm so sorry, man. That's tough, man. Like my grandma kind of had something similar. It wasn't a fall, but she'd been falling forever. But she's also like closer to 70, and she would always like her feet were like her ankles and feet were just not really the strongest, and she had surgery on them multiple times, and she'd fall a lot, and that's what ended up her being in the hospital. Easy cuts, being a diabetic, and it's even more so rough with easy breaks and easy cuts and lacerations and stuff like that. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, my grandma ended up going in coma for about it was like 10 days, and so I feel that, man, and I'm sorry that you had to go through all that and had to see it firsthand. And let's talk about some of your favorite memories of her growing up as a kid, and then also after that add some of the favorite memories you have with your son and her.
It's not one memory, it's just a collection of memories of through the years of hunting. I'm a big hunter.
Yeah.
And going out hunting, she was always, like I said, she was my biggest fan. And whenever I got a deer, she was the first person I always called. She knew right away. As soon as I called her, it was 8 in the morning, 9 in the morning. She'd pick up the phone. Did you get one? I'd be like, yeah, mom, I got one. I got a real nice one. She's like, let's go. Just always happy for me. I'd have to say another favorite moment with her is down at Norwalk. We took her down to the drag races. She'd always wanted to go to drag races. She's been to NASCAR races. She's never been to a drag race. She was sitting up in the stands, and I was probably 13, 14. And I remember convincing her to go down to the pit area and get as close as she could, just so she could feel it. And I ended up getting her like in the pit area as one of the cars took off, and she felt that rush through her chest. And I just remember her turning around with her jaw dropped, like,
Right.
oh my God. And to this day, I'll never forget that moment, man. That's like one of my favorite moments. Is like, she's always been that person to get me out there and push me past my limit and get me out of my comfort zone, and then to
That's
be
good.
that person and push her out of her comfort zone and see the positive that came
Yeah.
out of it was awesome.
That's awesome, man. That's like it's for me. I can't relate to that from a mother's perspective, mother or son, because obviously I don't know if you know, but and Chad probably doesn't know this, but so my mom's estranged for my life, and I've only seen her once in the last 30 plus years, and that was in 2017, 2018, I think it was. No, it was 2018. So I don't really have a lot of memories like that with my mom, but I'm glad to hear that that you did, and so I can kind of see and understand where because I think if my mom was to pass, I think I'd probably still have some of those really strong feelings and emotions of my mom's really gone. It's not even just physically or figuratively speaking, but
Yeah.
and I can't really imagine that to have to deal with that even as a 36-year-old man, but
No.
for what you had to go through. I know last year when you had talked to us about it, or you had mentioned it or posted about it, I definitely wanted to reach out to you, but at the same time I also understood that you wanted some space, and and most people do. Most people want space, they want privacy, and so it hurt me more, and from my perspective, not that you didn't want me to reach out or didn't want anybody to reach out. It hurt me not to be able to reach out to you. It hurt me that I had to restrain myself because I know you wanted that, and I knew that was a a time where I knew you were gonna have it was gonna be rough for you, not only just you, but you, as a father, having to explain to my son, my oldest one, about my grandma passing away, about his uncle passing away a couple years ago, and talking to a 6-year-old, 7-year-old, 8-year-old kid on what death means is very difficult. It's very hard to really, and as a father, man, it just hits. I think it hits home even more so when you're super close to that person, especially when the child grew up with that person. And so my hat's off to you on you being a great father, because I mean, I love seeing your streams with him, and I love what you do with him, and some of the postings you do with him and stuff like that. And you have an unbreakable bond with him, and I love seeing that, man.
That was the biggest thing that killed me too with the passing of my mom was, yeah, like I said, I was a mama's boy, so it hit me really hard losing your mom like that. But seeing my son go through that emotion and that heartbreak, and then having to tell him that grandma is sleeping and she's not going to be waking up, and having like just over the months, like my mom passed in January. We had the funeral in the beginning of February. And then I would say probably like March, April were probably two of the hardest months, because I could see that just sadness on Matthew's face.
Yeah.
And I could just, it was like one of those things where you see him down and you're like, what's going on, buddy? Like, you all right? And he just looks at you and he goes, no, he goes, I've been thinking about Mama, and I really miss Mama. And it just tears you up. And you're just like, in that situation, you're like, you don't know what to say. You don't know what to do, because you're feeling the same way, but that's your son. Like, you got to be strong for him. He looks up to you and all that. So you got to put on that front and that face and all that. And I think that's the biggest thing that I had to deal with myself, was putting on that front and being okay for everybody else going through that. And I think that's what killed me the most, was you always, in that situation when you're going through depression and you're feeling down, you feel like an outcast. You feel like you're just a nuisance to somebody if you bring up your problems, if you talk to them and stuff like that. Like, you're better off just bottling it up and hanging on to it for another rainy day when you're having a drink with a friend or something like that. And I think that is what led me to not the planning, but the ideas of suicide, because I was thinking, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to be this strong character anymore. I want to show that I'm vulnerable. I want to let out my emotions. I want to let out how I'm feeling about it. And I felt like I couldn't do that. And that's when I started having those thoughts of, maybe if I'm not around anymore, then nobody's going to have anybody to reach out to.
Right.
And I remember watching, I forgot who it was with, but I remember watching one of your podcasts, and you were talking about, if you're thinking about somebody in that moment, reach out and call them and do it. And my mod, Taryn, in that moment, she said she was thinking about me, and she reached out to me and gave me a call, and that was the call I needed.
That's awesome.
That was, I spilled everything out, how I was feeling, and she kind of talked me down and just let me know that I was okay, and that you have to get that out as well, and you need somebody to talk to, and blah, blah, blah. And
yeah.
That's the biggest thing is about me coming on here, is like trying to push it, is you're not alone out there. Like, you're not a nuisance to somebody. If you feel like you need to vent to somebody, if you feel like you got to talk to somebody, reach out to somebody and talk to them. And vice versa. If you're thinking about somebody, like, that just doesn't happen randomly. Like, something put that right in your head. So act on that moment. And it could be life-changing. It could be life-saving.
Yeah, so walk me through, because I mean, we have this comes up every episode. This comes up, and it's a great topic to talk about, because you're 31. You grew up early 90s, right? So a little bit after the curve with the Big Bang. You got the boomers and whatever, right? Big Bang, boomers, I meant. And then then you got me, my generation of late 80s or into the 90s, and but a lot of our culture as men is exactly what you said. We're taught to be rough. We're taught to hold our emotions in. No one's gonna care. To be the strong person in the room and be strong for everyone else, and don't let it show. Don't show weakness and stuff like that. And just like what you said, And that's what's causing a lot of, the higher rate of men's suicide, is the fact that we have been trained and mentally trained to be that way for a reason. And I get it. Like, during that time in the 80s and 90s, like war and all that shit was still going on. And so, and not only that, war within, ourselves, the civilian population in the U.S., internally, with a bunch of stuff that was going on, the rioting, the murders and all that stuff that was going on. So, like, I get the tough love. I get being taught to stand your ground and show strength and this and that, right? But in the end, what does it do for you? It creates an emotionless person. It creates somebody who can't necessarily return that empathy or that sympathy or that emotion for someone who may need it, right? And so I think that was good for you to recognize that, and it's awesome on Taryn to recognize it as well. And then also, I'm happy and I'm proud that she, used that message to reach out to you and called you.
Yeah, I think the other big contributor to kind of stem off what you're saying with us being raised as like the tough ones and whatnot. My father, he grew up in a military family. My grandfather was in the Air Force for 30 plus years, retired with them, and traveled all around the world. And he was always raised as kind of like a military brat. Like, you don't cry, you don't do this. He had strict punishment growing up, and he kind of took that into the relationship that he had with me and my brother, and was always strict whenever we cried. I don't know why you're crying, this type of deal. And I never seen him show emotion, ever. I never really seen him cry. I think I seen my dad cry twice in his entire life, and that was, the first one was his Brittany Spaniel that he had for 15 plus years, because he was a breeder and a
Bird hunting?
hunter. Yeah, bird hunter.
Yeah.
He did trials and stuff like that. So when he lost that dog, that was very emotional with him. And then the second time I ever seen him cry was when my mom died.
Yeah.
And that was like one of those moments where when I seen that and I seen him break down and I seen him cry, I literally went up to him, and when I walked up to him, I could see him wipe his face real quick and try to clear the tears off and clear his eyes up, because that's how he was. He had to put on that tough persona. And I just remember looking him right in the eyes, and I said, "Dad, it's all right. I'm right there with you, and I understand. You can let it out. Like, you ain't got to bottle it up."
Right.
And he broke down in my arms right there. We had a moment. And from that moment, he's also seen that you can't hold it in. You can't bottle it up. And with that, he's recognizing how harsh of a parent he kind of was growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And he's trying to better that relationship with me and my brother now because of it.
That's good.
And it sucks that it had to come to a traumatic moment like that happening, but it's those moments before it can happen. If you can prevent it, that's part of the reason why I'm on here today with you, is if you see those moments and you see those people, you go up to them and you let them know it's all right. You talk to them, you say it's okay. You're not showing weakness. Like, you're showing more strength than anything.
Exactly.
I feel like.
Yeah.
Because it takes a lot of strength to show emotion in public, and to come out and to talk to somebody and be like, "Hey, I need help, and I need it now."
Yeah.
Instead of bottling it up and getting to a point where something dramatic could happen.
Yeah. I can't even, I think maybe I have maybe less than a handful of memories with seeing my dad cry. First time I ever saw him cry was when he was drunk as shit. After a bar fight. I think he had just broken up with his current wife, or they split up or whatever, and he went out drinking and got into a bar fight and came back and broke down because, alcohol does that to you sometimes, you know, and especially when you're in a depressed state. And, you know, alcohol definitely, you know, they call it liquid courage for a reason. So I don't recommend drinking alcohol while you are in a super depressed state. You know, obviously there's levels of depression, right? You know, and I just don't recommend, like, if you have a depressive disorder of some sort, I wouldn't recommend getting drunk or, you know, doing that stuff all the time, or, you know, keep it limited or don't do it at all. And and don't get me wrong, I mean, I love my fair share of drinking, you know. Last night was definitely a you know, depressive moment, depression. You know, I was in a lot of depression last night, you know, with the Cowboys losing, dang it. But sorry, that was just to lighten the mood a little bit. No, but
Go Lions.
and so anyways, no, I'm just kidding. But the point I'm making is that my dad also, the very first time I saw him cry, like actually cry outside of, you know, that drunken moment, was when his mom's dad passed away. At his funerals, when I saw him, that was like the real first time that I actually seen some kind of an emotion out of him. I mean, I do see, like, you know, he has his happy moments. I've seen his angry moments, and I've seen, you know, his jokester moments, but I've never seen him be, you know, the point where he's crying or anything. And, you know, that's why we are as fathers. We want to be strong for our kids. We want to show them that, like, it's, you know, it's okay to be strong, but, like, you know, the father is typically the rock that holds things together when shit hits the roof or hits the fan. And so, but it's okay for you to show your kids, you know, that emotion side as well, because they need to know that it's okay, that, you know, to have multiple emotions and different types of emotions, so that way they don't grow up being emotionless, or, you know, I don't want to raise my son to be an asshole, you know. There's no reason for that. I want, like, my oldest one was he's doing a really good job at making sure he's there for his brother. He, you know, last few days he's been like, I love you, Dad, I love you, Mom, like every 5 minutes it seems, or every time he talks to us, like, it's what he does, you know. And it's good. We're happy for him, we're proud of him. And so my son, I don't know, I think he's seen me cry maybe a couple times, but, like, because I'm not afraid to show him different emotions, and no one should be afraid to show emotions, especially if you're in that point where, like, everyone has a breaking point, and it's okay to hide your emotions from people that you don't really want to, that you don't feel comfortable about or comfortable around with those emotions, and that's okay. That's your privacy. That's your prerogative. But please, I highly recommend, you know, showing those emotions to the people that you do have trust and that you do care more so about, and, you know, and is willing to open up and listen to you. Let's talk about your mom's passing. Because did we already reach a year, or is it the year coming up?
A year will be on January 24th, so we got a week and a half.
Yep, 9 days. Yep. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Man, time flies, and let's talk about, like, when it all went down. I think it was post funeral. Let's talk about your emotions after that, leading into, when did you start noticing that you started having suicidal ideations, and like, did you already have a plan? Did you already, or was it just suicidal ideations and you didn't really get that? Like, you know what I mean? Walk me through that whole process and up till when Taryn called you and helped you come off that edge.
So pretty much it was probably a couple months after. You think in that situation you'd have everybody on your side and family on your side, and I actually had some family show their true side, and they weren't a positive influence. They pretty much were telling me that now that my mom's gone and this, that, and the other, it's time to man up, give up the content creation, quit playing video games, work your ass off, be a real father for your kid. And that kind of drove me down, because content creation was my hobby. I love doing it. I love doing it because my mom was there. My mom was my biggest fan. She was always in my stream supporting me. And for somebody else in my family to tell me something like that, that just beat you down. Mm-hmm. And then it got to the point where I was noticing that I wasn't taking care of myself. Like, I wasn't showering every day. I wasn't trimming my beard. I was going without haircuts. I could see dishes stacking up in the sink. It was getting to the point where I was getting ready to cook dinner and I'm looking in my fridge and it's empty because I wasn't motivated to go shopping.
Right.
And I think it was, like I said, being that tough person around like the end of March. I just got done celebrating my mom's would have been 64th birthday, and like everybody was just really down in the family, and I was trying to be that strong, supportive one. And that's when I went home and like I broke down, and I was like, I didn't have that person
Right.
available that I was trying to be for them. And that's when I had the thoughts. I never got to the planning stage. I never got to trying to execute it, but I had ideas come across my head, and it was like, well, if you weren't here anymore, you wouldn't have to deal with any of this. You wouldn't have to be that person anymore. And yeah, you could just push your problems off on somebody else.
Right.
And during one of those episodes is when I heard my phone go off, and I heard it go off multiple times from people messaging me saying like, "Hey, are you okay?" This,
Yeah.
that, and the other. And it was my phone actually vibrating for like a phone call coming in, and it did it twice. And I looked over, and it was Taryn trying to call me, and it was where I can't remember what I said. I sent like a message or something, but I hadn't responded for a while. And she knew something was up. She knew something wasn't right. And after she tried to message me the like third or fourth time, that's when she decided to try and call me.
Yeah.
And that's when I was going through it, and I broke down, and I told her exactly what I was going through. And she was my rock in that moment. Like,
That's good.
she was pretty much telling me that, and I live by it to this day, that even though my mom is gone and she's not here anymore, she's still with me right here in my chest,
Mhm.
and she's watching every step I take. And I got to make her proud.
Most definitely.
I can't do anything to disappoint her or anything like that. And that I take that aspect into everything I do in life, is before I make a decision on something, like, would my mom be proud of me?
Right.
And I feel like that's where I got back into the content creating and my community getting out there and wanting to run games with me. If it wasn't for that phone call or my community being there for me and trying to push me to get back into content creating, I probably would still be working in a warehouse. Hopefully I would still be here.
It doesn't say, because if you guys don't know who Taryn is, Taryn's a Queen T, and she pops into the stream every once in a while, and she's been a part of this community for as long as I can remember. I know she's been a part of your community for a while too, and she's been your rock since I've known her being there, and she's been doing a great job being a super mod for you, and it's nice and happy, and I'm happy to see that and proud to see that Taryn took that and helped you and saved you that night. And I think it was during Green Bay Kills episode, the first episode of official DomCast. It's exactly the message we're trying to push, and it's exactly the type of thing I want to hear, I want to see people doing, and it saves people's lives. It is what it is. And it's proven, it's becoming more proof that just calling somebody, don't text message, don't, unless obviously if that's the only way you can get a hold of somebody because you don't have their phone number or whatever may be the case, calling that person immediately is going to save more lives than, because we've gone to become that culture of text messaging, DMing, versus just picking up the phone and calling. I think I'm more on. I don't even call very often, but I do call once in a while. But I think I talk to people like Thebes, people like Miss Pikachu and my other mods, and through video gaming, and I hear you guys' voices over this more so than I do ever phone calls. But it's a culture that we've become accustomed to, and I'm not saying it's a culture we need to change, but we need to go back to our roots and actually just picking up that phone and calling somebody, whether it's a Facebook call or it's a Discord call or something. No, I'm proud of you, man. I know it's hard. It was even hard for me with my grandma passing in July, and she was the same thing for you or for me as your mom was for you. She was my rock when it came to when I went to basic training. Anytime something happened in the military, good, bad, or indifferent, I would call her all the time, and and she was in my streams quite a bit too. She was always lurking. She would always just watch it, or whatever, and then she would text me. I guess I don't know, I don't know if she just didn't know how to like chat, but she would always text me. I'm like, Grandma, you're doing the same thing, but do it in the stream. Like, what the heck, you know? But she was the same way as I was. So I mean, I can relate with my grandma passing to your mom passing this last year as well. It's amazing how family becomes. Let's say the curtains come down. When someone that's the rock for the family, or the family member that is holding it all together, keeping the peace, goes away, passes, and the curtains come down and everyone wants to start boxing everyone for shit. And it's unfortunate, man. I'm sorry that you had to go through that, especially with them telling you, "Oh, drop your hobby so you can focus on your son and be a better father." But yeah, if they're in your stream, they would know that how much of a good father you are. With not even just the fact that you're there with him, but like having him on stream, teaching him how to play, getting his mind thinking on strategies or puzzle making, and it's amazing that people want to judge you from the outside looking in and not seeing the big picture. And I'm proud of you to one, just being who you are and not changing. Your mom wouldn't want you to change. Staying strong for your son, continuing the traditions that you have with him, and what you've grown to know. And dude, it's amazing, man. And I'm glad, like I said, I'm glad that we're having this conversation, because I know I reached out to you. I think it was I want to say it was about a month after your mom's passing, because I hadn't heard from you in a while, and I had reached out to you via DM just because I didn't have your number at the time. And I don't remember if I was left on red or whatever, but I didn't want to push it because I know that you were going through some things, and my thing is. That's something that I need to get over too, because like my thing is like, well, everyone's probably reaching out to him. He's probably doesn't want, he's probably ignoring text messages and stuff like that because everyone's reaching out, and it's like I get overwhelmed when I start having like soldiers that are like messaging me all the week prior to showing up to drill, and they're just messaging me. I'm like, oh, I just put my phone away. It's not the same, but it's the same in a sense of like multiple people messaging you and trying to figure out, and you're in that mindset of I just want to be left alone. I just don't want to talk to anybody because. And it may not be because of suicidal ideations. It's just like you just don't want to have to explain to people. You don't want to, or you don't want to show that emotion. You don't want to open up to people. It's not the right people that you want to open up to.
Like, I'll be 100% honest. There was a bunch of people that I left on red that reached out to me saying that I'm sorry for losing your mom. And I tried my best to respond back to them, but it was like every time you respond back and you read, I'm sorry for the loss of your mother, it just hammers it even more and more and more that it's real.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And it's happening. And then you start running through memories, then you start getting upset. And it was like after the fourth or fifth time of that happening, I was just like, you know what, I'm just gonna set my phone over to the side. If they message me, I'll look at it to show that I'm still here and paying attention and all that, but I can't reply it this time.
I respect it, man. And like I'm glad, like I said, almost a year later, I think you started back up streaming again a few months ago. Or have you been streaming like a lot more a few months after that?
I got back into streaming. I was streaming on and off, and now I'm starting to get more back into my full-time. Yeah, my consistency of trying to do it almost every night to every other night.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Do you have... You don't have to share this, obviously. You don't have to like put it on a stream or anything, but because like luckily for me, I have a way of listening to my grandma through a voicemail, her last voicemail she ever sent me. Do you have something like that from her?
I do. Yeah. I do have a couple of voicemails in my phone to where I can still hear her voice. But the biggest thing that I love, and I know everybody's always been iPhone, Android, but because of this iPhone right here, I have live photos that I took of my mom, and I have some photos of my mom with my son that I can sit there and look at and hold it and see the actual motion of the video. It's not a video, but it's a photo. Yeah. And you can see the smile on her face and like the joy and all that. And I'm very thankful for that.
Like the voicemail that I have for my grandma isn't like a good one, like in a way, like she's not yelling at me, like, she's not, But like it's just her saying, "Hey, I'm out of the hospital now. I'm sorry, and whatever, blah blah blah." But I don't even care what the concept was or what the context was of that voice message. It's just the fact that I have something that I can still hear her voice on. And you guys did a burial or did you guys cremate?
We did a burial.
Okay.
We
Yeah.
did an open casket viewing as well.
That's good. Good. Yeah, we did a viewing, and then they took my grandma to the mortuary to cremate. So we have, I don't know if you can see it, probably not because it's like right next to, where's my finger going? Where's it at? Oh my god, I can't point. It's like right next to Pikachu, but it's like between the sword and the Pikachu. Got a little urn of her ashes up there.
Oh, okay, that's cool, man.
Yeah. So
she's always with you. That's awesome.
Yeah, and then I also have in my backpack. I had my aunt actually got a bunch of us a little necklace with some of her ashes in there as well, like a little like charm. I'm happy that you came over and you reached out. I know immediately after the I think it was the Green Bay Kill episode. You reached out and said, "Hey man, I want to join this and this movement and be here."
Yeah, most definitely, man.
And I know it took forever for me to get to this point for us to have this conversation. Part of it was that I didn't want to feel like I was taking someone's time up during the holidays. I know that was the huge message was like during the holidays is the biggest time, when people start having these emotions and depressions and seasonal depression and stuff like that. But at the same time, I didn't want to take people's time away. And I didn't want to make more people upset with not upset, but like emotional with the conversations we're having. So I waited until after New Year's, and I'm glad we were able to do this. Is there anything more you want to add to your story? Because I know you have some. I think you have some more you want to talk about with your mom and stuff.
Yeah, I was just gonna stem back to when you were talking about when you're going through that depressive state and to try not to turn to drugs or the alcohol or anything like that. Back during COVID, prior to my mom passing and prior to all this happening, when I was working in the warehouse, Detroit, Michigan was one of the hot zones for COVID. So during that, I'm gonna be extremely morbid with it right here, but I was sending nothing but body bags, pallets of body bags down there.
Yeah.
Ventilator tubes, everything. And then I got a phone call that my kid's mother had an asthma attack and both of her lungs collapsed, and that she was in the hospital and that she coded 3 times.
Oh, wow.
And hearing that she was in the hospital, this is when they had the limited access. Like, we couldn't go up there. We couldn't see her. The only information we were getting was when we called. She was in the hospital or in a coma for about 2 weeks. And in that 2 weeks, I was sending those ventilator tubes and those body bags. And it put me into such a depressive state that I started drinking. And Crown Apple was my drink of choice. And I remember getting shooters when I got off of work, and when I was getting those shooters, I was getting a 5th, and it eventually got to the point where I actually gave myself gastritis from ruining my stomach lining from drinking so much, because in that 2 weeks, as sad as it is to say, but it's the truth, I went through 15 fifths in 2 weeks because I was drinking almost a 5th a night because I was coming home and I didn't want to feel that pain. I didn't want to feel sad. I didn't want to feel anything. So I was just drinking till it went away, and that eventually caught up to me. And I tell that whole story because flash forward to when my mom passed, went through that same depressive state, and I was sitting at the house and I didn't want to think about it anymore. And I was like, you know what? That bottle of Grey Goose is looking pretty good.
Right.
Let's go ahead and let's take a couple swigs out of it. And lo and behold, I ended up drinking the whole 5th. I made myself sick again, and I ended up putting myself in the hospital for 2 days because I re-triggered my gastritis because of the drinking. And just seeing that toll on my brother and how it made me feel afterwards, it was like, this cannot be a fallback anymore. And that's part of the reason why I'm talking about it now is if you feel like you have to turn to alcohol or drugs or something to get away from the pain, it helps you in that moment, but in the long run, you're eventually gonna pay for it.
Right.
And yeah,
And
because
that's how it
like
is
I
too.
can,
Like you have these vices that like the short term, it's a band-aid fix. You know, it's a short term fix for a long term problem, and the long term problem is still going to be there. You just might have a relief for that short period of time, and it doesn't really do anything for you, really. Ultimately, you know. And yeah, I remember because I remember we were trying to do like a drinking stream one time. You're like, nah, I can't, man. I got uh, I got some medical
yeah,
stuff, or whatever. And I was like, okay, yeah, you're good now. Like you have they kind of gave you the idea of what's going on, and so like you know how to
yeah.
recover from it pretty
I'm
well.
all better with it now. I know how to battle it. I have my medicine that I take for it. I know what liquors I can drink now and what liquors I can't.
Well, none of them if you're drinking a fifth.
Yeah, none of them if I'm drinking a fifth, obviously.
But you know what triggers it and stuff like that. Okay.
Yeah, like I can still like now I can still drink. I can still have uh, a mixed drink here and there. Like I'll have a cranberry and vodka or something like that. But when it comes to that hard whiskey and that Jack Daniels Crown and stuff like that, after a couple shots of that, I start getting flashbacks
Yeah,
to when I was sick. And then it's like, oh my God, you start feeling like you're going through it again. So,
makes sense. There's a lot of raw emotions right now for me, at least from your story, because like it's relatable, man. Like I went through in 08, 09, like I went through suicidal ideations, for different reasons, obviously, but like I feel that, man. Like in any way that's in chat that's a veteran, or even or anybody that's in chat that deals with the streets, the street laws, and and having nobody to talk to because of the culture you're raised around is it's hard. Like I don't really have a lot of people that I turn to talk to. I mean, obviously I have my community now, but like beforehand, like it was, especially when I like didn't have my family there, because like I actually disowned like 90% of my family because drama, and you don't want, I don't really want to be around drama. So anytime I had issues with whatever's going on in my life, I didn't really have anybody to talk to. So it's the same. You go through those same thoughts all the time. Like I'm alone. I don't have anybody to talk to. I don't have anybody to open up to. Who's going to listen to me? Who's going to care? Who's going to, or they're just going to, you know, brush me off. And so being able to have that courage to come on here and talk your story, man, and talk what you went through, even, prior to all this with your mom and stuff like that, and talking about your ex and what she went through during the COVID times, man, that's some powerful stuff there. And seeing you come out on top, fighting these dark demons and fighting your way through that into the light is phenomenal, man. I applaud you. I applaud Karen again, Queen T, for looking out for my boy here, Thebes. Another thing you got to realize and you understand too is like you're not alone. You still have that little boy that you got to take care of.
yep.
The little boy that looks up to you phenomenally, and my nieces and nephews on my wife's side, they don't have their father anymore. He passed away 2 years ago, and that's showing through what they're going through right now without a father. I mean, obviously, their mom's dating another dude or whatever. It's another story for something else, but it affects kids more so than we realize it, and I couldn't even imagine doing that to myself and allowing my kids to be fatherless, and so we have to be strong for our kids, but at the same time we also need to let them know that we hurt as well. We have emotions. We do we have tears as well, and I think that's the biggest thing that we can fight for is our kids.
I think the other thing too that helped me with like the idea of like the suicide and all that and not committing to it is being through a past experience of a previous family member committing suicide themselves and going to that funeral, and like it was just it was one of the saddest but most awkward funerals that I've
Yeah,
ever been through, because everybody there was obviously sad because of the passing of Dale, that was my step uncle, but they were also mad too because when you think on that and you act on that, you're being I hate saying it, but you're being selfish, not thinking about others and not thinking about how it's going to affect the others. And I think in that moment, along with the phone call, thinking of that funeral that I went to, is I was like, I don't want to put my family through that. I don't want to put my son through that. I don't want to put my friends through that. I don't want to put anybody through that.
Right.
So I think that was another big thing that helped me out too, and being that rock for my son and all that, and trying to say like, hey, I'm here for you and I'm not going anywhere.
I agree, man. I mean, you got the stigma too. Like, there's the negative stigma, right? You know, the culture of suicide has always been, oh, people are cowards, the easy way out, this and that, blah blah blah, whatever may be the case. Like, I don't give a fuck about negative culture, negative stigma, because it doesn't help anything. It doesn't help solve the problem, right? Like you're saying, it's true. Those that commit suicide are thinking about themselves, and it's not like, I'm not saying that in a negative way. It sounds negative because of the connotation of it, right? But ultimately, that's the reason why they commit suicide, is because they only think they're alone because they feel alone, and we have to be able to spread that message and like let them know, like, we're not leaving you alone. We're not allowing you to be alone, but we are here to listen. We're here to talk to you. And so that's the thing is, and this is where I'm gonna end the conversation, unless you have more. But
No.
we're all connected, whether you like it or not. We're all connected. We're, like I've said before, we're a tree trunk. Every single one of us is a tree trunk, and all of our branches. There's all of our associations, our relationships, our loved ones, our friends, our significant others. You know, and when that tree trunk dies, what happened? A lot of those relationships, a lot of those connections die with it. And I don't mean like actual death, but but I mean, sometimes it could be. Sometimes it does lead to that. Other people doing the same thing and kind of following suit because of how much love they have for that person. And so if you look at the tree of life, that's pretty much what I'm bringing up. Is every single one of us is a tree of life, and all of our branches connect to each other.
I like your idea of the tree of life at the end, because like when you say something like that, you could be one tree in the woods and I could be a totally different tree in the woods, but we're going to be right next to each other. But our roots underground, we're not connected at all above ground, but our roots underground, some way, somehow, they're intertangled and they're connected.
Exactly.
And yep, I love that message.
Yeah. And to add to that, I do have new merch that actually has all that on there. So a lot of my sweaters, there's a shirt that says "We're all connected." It has a tree of life on there. We have the suicide awareness ribbon on some of the shirts and stuff like that. So we really tailored our new merch around this DomCast. So please, if you guys can, go check it out. Support the channel that way, and this will show people we're all connected by wearing out the merchandise and showing people that people are out there that truly care. Whether it's a stranger on the street, someone might ask you what that shirt means and this that, and you can talk to them like, listen, you're feeling down. That's what we're about. Let them know about the community, what we're trying to develop here.